KATU Channel 2. Buying Beauty, Sunday at 6 on Town Hall.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the Bush administration's formal assessment of what it will take to protect the Kurds now in northern Iraq from Saddam Hussein if he decides to act against them. The decision has been made in Washington that the last of the U.S. troops who have been with the Kurds in Iraq will be completely out of the country by Monday. But some of the troops will not go far. And Saddam Hussein has been warned again today that unless he comes clean about his nuclear program, the campaign against him may very well escalate. At the Pentagon, here's ABC's Bob Zelnick.
Most Kurds are back in their home villages, and on the surface, life appears to be returning to normal. So the Allies feel it is safe to withdraw their troops from northern Iraq. But to discourage an Iraqi move against the Kurds in the future, the Allies will deploy 2 battalions of quick reaction troops, 2,500 to 3,000 soldiers, in Shalopi, Turkey, supported by combat aircraft based on land and at sea.
The coalition retains a clear interest in peace within Iraq and is willing to respond militarily to Iraqi actions that disturb the peace.
More specifically, the Iraqis have been told not to fly their aircraft north of the 36th parallel or to interfere with Allied surveillance flights which will continue over Iraqi territory. Iraqi troops and police were told to keep out of the so-called security zone established in the Kurdish areas. At the United Nations today, diplomatic sources say Iraq received an even more ominous warning. Baghdad was told it had until July 27th to fully disclose its nuclear equipment or face serious consequences, presumably Allied bombing strikes. Until then, UN investigators will be seeking more information on a nuclear effort one source described as broad but not highly developed, a series of technologies Iraq didn't know how to use. What both the Allied and UN warnings have in common is the conviction that despite his military defeat, Saddam Hussein remains a man of ruthless ambition. Having stopped short of ousting him when they could, the Allies must continue trying to control his military and political appetite. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the Pentagon.
There is a report tonight that Saddam Hussein is conducting another purge of his military, apparently concerned there may be a coup attempt. The Associated Press, quoting foreign diplomats, says that many of Hussein's top generals have been executed during the past few weeks. The leader of the United Nations humanitarian mission to Iraq, who is now in Baghdad, is asking the UN to ease the sanctions against Iraq. Otherwise, he says there will be a dramatic rise in hunger and disease. The UN is now considering if Iraq should be allowed to sell more than $1 billion in oil to get money for food and medicine. In a moment, the president lashes out at the Senate for delaying the confirmation hearings of his choice to be CIA director. A new partnership in California, private enterprise and prison labor. And our person of the week, reflections through the mind's eye.
It's time to rediscover American values with America's favorite minivans. Now, get special low monthly payments on Dodge Caravan and Plymouth Voyager, the only minivans with a driver's minivan airbag. Or rediscover American value with savings that make them the lowest priced minivans you can buy with air conditioning and automatic transmission. Either way, it's time to rediscover American value on Dodge Caravan and Plymouth Voyager. But don't wait. These savings advantages won't last.
In this, our 100th year of helping people travel, we'd like to offer one more piece of advice. Have fun. From American Express traveler's checks. Don't leave home without them.
Poison ivy, insect bites, rashes. Too many choices.
You only need one. Cordaid.
Stop the itch and heal the rash with a brand doctors recommend most.
Present Arms.
Cordaid, the only aid you need.
President Bush decided today to go after Congress in a very public way on the subject of his choice to be the new director of the CIA, Robert Gates. A Senate committee has delayed Mr. Gates' confirmation hearings while it tries to determine if one of Mr. Gates' former associates at the CIA has information linking Mr. Gates to the Iran-Contra scandal. The president says Mr. Gates has been left, in his words, twisting out there. Here's ABC's Britt Hume.
The president had been chatting with reporters this morning and turned to leave, waving off further questions. But someone called out a question about the Gates CIA nomination, and that got the president's attention.
Let me say something on the Gates matter. Well, what are we coming to here? You're talking to somebody who had to prove his innocence. Me. On the basis of rumor.
Mr. Bush was referring to charges he had taken part in meetings in Paris in October 1980 for the purpose of delaying until after the election the release of U.S. hostages in Iran. The president has since established he wasn't there, and he sees a parallel in the so far unspecified Iran-Contra charges against Gates. He went on for almost 15 minutes, urging the Senate to get on with the testimony.
This nomination's been there a long time, and now we're hearing that there's some process going on behind closed doors someplace by some witness who hasn't fingered Gates, but that's enough to hold this up.
The president would not accuse senators of playing politics. He said he sees something else at work.
But what I do worry about is that there's some pusillanimity, faint-heartedness. You hear a rumor, and then you run for cover, get under the bush like a quail and hope that you don't get flushed out for a while.
Late today, Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Boren said if the president insists, he would at least start the Gates hearings.
Now, on the other hand, we have a responsibility that goes beyond a responsibility to any individual. It's a responsibility to the American people to be thorough in our deliberations.
What that means is that Gates himself can testify, but the committee won't act on him until it's tied up that latest loose end in the Iran-Contra criminal case. No telling how long that could take. Britt Hume, ABC News, Kennebunkport, Maine.
The president's Supreme Court nominee, Clarence Thomas, is trying to clear up a new controversy over his political beliefs. The fact that he is an admirer of black nationalist Malcolm X has not raised many eyebrows. But the report that he also admires the most prominent black nationalist of today, Louis Farrakhan, is causing a stir. Here's ABC's Jim Workman.
However diligently Judge Thomas courts the senators who will decide his future, parts of his past keep popping up. Today it was a copy of an old speech resurrected by the Dallas Times-Herald, which, as written, praises Louis Farrakhan, the black Muslim minister later notorious for his pro-Hitler anti-Semitic rhetoric. A man I've admired for more than a decade, says the printed text. And although it wasn't clear whether Thomas himself actually spoke those words, today he issued a formal denial that he is in any way anti-Semitic. He did not, however, repudiate Farrakhan. Yesterday it was marijuana, a leak to the Washington Post of the judge's own admission to the White House that he'd experimented with the drug as a student. True, said the president, but it doesn't matter. For some critics of Thomas or the president, that raised the question of how the White House could, on one hand, endorse long prison terms for current casual users of marijuana, while on the other, dismiss Judge Thomas's use of the same drug as merely a youthful indiscretion.
We're really fed up with the hypocrisy that has now come down from this president.
Representative John Conyers, a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, which yesterday announced its opposition to Judge Thomas for his opposition to affirmative action, a position unacceptable to most of the civil rights establishment.
This is not a matter of taking anybody that's black and be happy with it. We don't have to.
Well, nobody has to, of course. But the reality is that despite all the voices being raised against him, the American Jewish Congress today said it may also oppose Judge Thomas. There is no real sense as yet that his nomination is in serious trouble. Jim Wooten, ABC News, Washington.
When we come back, some signs that consumers are not buying the idea of an economic recovery.
The same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin.
The same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin.
Same as in Motrin in non-prescription strength.
Did you ever notice that a lot of pain relievers seem to be saying the same thing? Well, if you want the same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin, wouldn't it just be simpler to ask for Motrin IB? Non-prescription strength Motrin IB. You can't buy a more effective pain reliever without a prescription. Motrin IB. Accept no alternatives.
Say, kids, what time is it?
It's Kids Day free time at Quality, Comfort, Clarion, and Sweet Hotels.
Huh? Kids 18 and under stay free at Choice Hotels when you call 1-800-4CHOICE and reserve a room.
When you get gas pain, which would you choose?
Urant acid or Gas-X, the tablet made for gas pain. It's extra strength, 100% simethicone to get rid of gas faster than Urant acid. Fight gas right with Gas-X.
Think about your daily dreams and what you would do if you won $1 million out of the blue. Miracle can happen for you. Publishers Clearinghouse, the house
News of inflation today that is making some economists rather nervous. Wholesale prices went down 0.3% last month. That is a strong signal that inflation remains under control. But it is also a signal that the recovery from the recession may turn out to be a very bumpy ride. Here's our economics editor, Stephen Ogg.
The wholesale price of gasoline fell 1.6% last month. The prices of natural gas and electricity also went down. Food prices fell as well. In fact, over the past 6 months, wholesale prices have fallen at an annual rate of 1.5%. One reason prices are coming down is because there's less demand. But even though lower wholesale prices generally result in lower retail prices, consumers are not buying. Retail sales fell 0.2% last month. It was the third time this year that retail sales were down from the previous month. Results were especially bad for department stores. Not only were sales down from the previous month, but what's worse, big chains like Sears, JCPenney, and the May department stores say their sales were actually below what they were a year ago at this time.
The main problem for consumers and consumer spending is there just isn't enough income. There's not enough income being generated. There are not enough jobs being generated to push up income to give consumers the fuel for spending.
Consumer spending accounts for 2/3 of economic activity. With consumers not spending much and employers reluctant to rehire, many economists say the recovery, already off to a slow start, may remain slow for another year. Stephen Ogg, ABC News, Washington.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials gained 21 points to close at 2980. The trading was moderate, and that brought the gain for the week to more than 48 points. An economic gamble on the part of California voters appears to be paying off for California businesses and prisoners. Last fall, voters approved a proposition to allow private industry to hire convicts as workers. ABC's Gary Shepard tonight on how the program is working.
For decades, California's 100,000 state prison inmates have worked making license plates, or welding, or building furniture for state offices. They earn next to nothing. Top scale is 75 cents an hour. Now, convicts can make the same wages paid on the outside, working for private employers inside prison walls.
We have a competent labor force on call, ready to go to work, earn some money, turn their lives around, go back into society as positive members and not as takers.
More than 50 businesses toured San Quentin recently to see what prisons have to offer.
We have almost 200,000 square feet of space available here that we will lease to companies at less than market cost, and that is very appealing to companies.
Inmate employees would work a 40-hour week. 20% of their wages would be taken by the prison for room and board. Another 20% would go to a fund for crime victims. They would also be required to give financial support to their families and save at least 20% for when they get out.
I have a family. I just have a new baby girl. I can send money home.
Now is an opportunity to make some money, and establish some contacts with the people on the outside.
As an incentive, businessmen like printing executive Curtis Taylor would get a tax credit for using prison labor and would not have to pay fringe benefits. So he's considering the idea.
We could train a staff there, and they would be available when we needed them. And as they said, they aren't going anywhere for the time being, so they'll be there 24 hours a day.
Angry union leaders say out-of-work, law-abiding citizens will be hurt.
If there are jobs out here and they're unemployed, they should have the first opportunity to take those jobs to get reestablished.
But prison authorities say the jobs will go to inmates only if no one on the outside wants them.
Factories, telecommunications, processing plants. There's a lot of jobs out there that aren't getting filled that inmates could do the work.
California prison officials say if they can have 2,000 inmates working for private industry within 2 years, the program will be off to a successful start.
Gary Shepard, ABC News, San Quentin.
For the first time today, there are signs that the embattled chief of police in Los Angeles is ready to step aside. 2 city council members say that Chief Daryl Gates will leave within the next 6 to 9 months after a new chief is selected. Gates would only say today that he might resign if voters agree to limit a police chief's term of office, as recommended by an independent commission. News today of the largest hashish bust ever. 12 days ago, the Coast Guard got suspicious and boarded the freighter Lucky Star about 600 miles off Midway Island in the Pacific. They found 100 tons of hashish worth an estimated $2 billion. Authorities say the Lucky Star was something of a mothership. Smaller boats would come out to pick up the drugs, which are thought to have come from Pakistan. When we come back, Mr. Gorbachev looking ahead to his meeting with the leaders of the world's richest nations next week in London.
Jordan drives and misses. Michael throws it away. Jordan falls. This is a nightmare.
You want to be sure of your game. You also want whole grain nutrition. But only one of these cereals has it. Only Wheaties is made with 100% whole grain. So if you want to rest a little easier, better get your whole grain.
Better eat your Wheaties.
Throughout history, great barriers have been discovered and built. Heart's Blockade for dogs and cats is one of them. Used as directed, Heart's Blockade creates an invisible barrier protecting your pets from fleas and ticks before they get a chance to live on your pet. Heart's Blockade repels and kills fleas and ticks, including ticks that carry Lyme disease, reducing the chances of causing discomfort to your pet. Helping to improve your pet's quality of life is your responsibility. Helping you do that is Heart's.
Here's news. If your athlete's foot won't go away, you could have more than athlete's foot. You could have a secondary yeast infection. That's right, yeast.
Only Mycotin cures both athlete's foot and secondary yeast infections with Myconazole. Step up to the Mycotin.
With the chalky taste of some antacids, it can seem that the cure is worse than the pain. Introducing new Mylanta Cherry and Cool Mint Creams, the best tasting antacids, blended creamier for a non-chalky taste.
No wonder my doctor said Mylanta. Our dentist gave us a reason to try Arm & Hammer Dental Care.
Baking soda. He recommended it for healthier teeth and gums.
In fact, 2 out of 3 dentists and hygienists recommend baking soda for healthier teeth and gums.
And only one major toothpaste has it. Arm & Hammer Dental Care, the baking soda toothpaste from the baking soda experts.
And here's refreshing news for gel lovers. Now there's a baking soda gel with the cool taste of freshly picked mint. Wait till you taste new Arm & Hammer Dental Care Gel.
In Washington today, Soviet Foreign Minister Besmertnik and Secretary of State Baker have tried again to finish a nuclear arms control agreement. They say there is still work to be done. In Moscow, Mikhail Gorbachev says he has now won the Soviet Parliament's backing for his latest proposed economic reforms. These are the proposals he's taking to the Economic Summit in London next week. As ABC's David Enser reports, if Mr. Gorbachev is to get the kind of Western help he wants, he's going to have to be a lot bolder.
With his appearance at the Economic Summit only days away, Gorbachev seemed at pains to reduce expectations that major change in the Soviet Union is just around the corner. Sitting beneath a portrait of Lenin, Gorbachev said no one should think he will fall on his knees and beg when he meets with leaders of the world's 7 richest nations. While he said he does want their help, there was no indication he will let them tell him what to do. Asked whether he favors the idea of private ownership of property in the Soviet Union, which George Bush is pushing, Gorbachev spoke carefully. We're moving to a mixed economy, he said, when all forms of ownership have equal rights and are equally protected by the state and by the Constitution. He also praised collective farming, a system that fails to feed this country and leads Westerners to fear their money could be wasted. Gorbachev's aides came closer to saying the kinds of things Western leaders want to hear. They promised that in London, he will present 6 to 8 areas, including oil and gas, where Western investment could be profitable, but is currently stalled. The process of privatization is going on, Gorbachev said today, and I believe that in 1 or 2 years, a lot of changes will take place in this area. Gorbachev still seems to want it both ways, to attract Western economic help without bending to Western demands, that he radically reform the Soviet system. David Ensor, ABC News, Moscow.
We have another more subtle sign of change to report tonight in the Soviet Union. It could be called a change in attitude. It is certainly a new attention to etiquette. Here's ABC's Jim Laurie.
Saturday night at a Moscow nightclub. Russians at play, doing what they have a reputation for, overindulging, displaying rude manners. But enter the elegant Vera Murachova.
This is the proper way to drink.
She is a Soviet Miss Manners. For 35 rubles a lesson, she teaches hundreds of Russians how to behave. For many, coming here is a refuge, an escape from the cruel hardships and humiliations of Soviet life.
They know that they shouldn't be rude, even if another person is rude. Sometimes on the streets, for example, on the transport and our shops, I see that our people are not very polite.
Miss Murachova teaches how to meet people politely, how to talk.
The first thing is the way people talk to each other, the tone, what they say, how they look.
In my mind, our Soviet women have no chance to be polite. To my mind, they are so angry, they're so tired.
She offers advice on how to deal with poor service, surly waiters, rude clerks.
You shouldn't get angry, because this won't help at all. On the contrary, this will make the waiter more angry than he was before.
It may well be that Vera Murachova is fighting an uphill battle. But even if just for a minute there's a smile or a polite word, then Miss Manners has made Soviet life just a little more bearable. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Moscow.
If you'll excuse us, we'll be back in a moment.
World News Tonight with Peter Jennings and the Person of the Week are brought to you by the fun ships of Carnival Cruise Line.
If you're looking for a great vacation, I've got just the place. In the morning, in the evening, ain't we got fun? Not much money, oh, but honey, ain't we got fun? The food is great here, there's never a bill. So pay up late, dear, let's not miss a thrill. Take a 3, 4, or 7-day fun ship vacation on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
It's coming. Trying is Believing Week. The week you'll discover.
Grape Nuts is full of complex carbohydrates, and it's fat-free. You won't believe how it helps keep you going all morning until you try it with breakfast.
Post Grape Nut cereal. You've got to try it.
In art, taste is subjective, but in life, good taste is well defined. Fancy Feast gourmet cat food, exceptionally moist and delicious. Fancy Feast. Good taste is easy to recognize.
This is the sound of Unisom, the sound of sleep. With Unisom, you hit your pillow and fall asleep fast. Tonight, you can sleep more soundly with Unisom, America's #1 sleep aid.
When minor arthritis pain holds you back, you need strong medicine. Bengay with not just one, but 2 pain relievers. Warming power for fast relief. Bengay helps get you going again. Bengay, fast, strong medicine for pain relief.
Tonight, kids baseball leads. More get hurt than you think, and a lot can be done to prevent it. Plus, the pressure on women to live up to media images of beauty and sex appeal. Do you suffer trying to fit the mold? Watch 2020 tonight.
Finally, this evening, our Person of the Week. When we say that this particular person caught our eye this week, we mean it literally. This is an astoundingly talented woman. She makes a difference in part because she provokes people. And because it is impossible to ignore her art, she makes a difference.
What I really want to do is take a great photograph. And that's really what I'm interested in. That's incredible.
Annie Leibovitz has taken so many great photographs. A retrospective of her first 20 years of work has turned into a major event at the National Portrait Gallery in Washington. But over the years, of all the famous faces that Leibovitz has photographed for the pages of Rolling Stone magazine and Life and Vanity Fair, very few have raised as many eyebrows as this week's Vanity Fair cover. The actress, Demi Moore, pregnant.
It was very natural for us to just go ahead and shoot full figure. Either you like it or you don't like it. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground with the photograph, and I think that's great.
Annie Leibovitz was born in Connecticut, one of 6 children. Her father was an Air Force colonel, her mother a dancer and a shutterbug. Annie caught the bug.
My mother shot family photographs, our whole growing up period. Some of the most powerful images that I can remember, just family snapshots.
While studying painting at the San Francisco Art Institute, Annie decided to trade brush for camera.
I just really liked the immediacy that I could just go out and take a photograph or have an idea about something, and I had it right away. And painting was just really too slow for me.
When she was only 20 in 1970, Annie Leibovitz was hired by the fledgling Rolling Stone magazine. She was paid $25 for this picture of the poet Allen Ginsberg. Beside the early pictures of rock stars, John Lennon and Mick Jagger, among others, Annie took her camera to the streets.
Some of my very early photographs just really look as if I'm just asking people, just stand over here, click.
She was not going to make it as a photojournalist, but it would not be long before the Leibovitz style was unmistakable. Louis Armstrong, Baryshnikov, Dolly Parton. Her photographs very often surprise. She actually got them to do that. Schwarzenegger, Whoopi Goldberg in a tub of milk. Sometimes it is where she encourages her subjects to stand. Bruce Springsteen and Woody Allen in the bathroom. Steve Martin as art collector. The former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tip O'Neill.
I'm more involved now in the power of the person in the portrait.
The media tycoon, Rupert Murdoch.
I think he works and lives inside of his head mostly. A lot of really good actors and actresses are very uncomfortable with a still camera. They feel much more comfortable moving.
Meryl Streep.
Creating a role for them in the photograph really helps them relax, giving them a part to play.
Yoko Ono and John Lennon in bed in 1980.
The story to me at that moment was that they were still together, and because they had a big breakup and they were back together.
John Lennon was murdered the same night.
Whoopi Goldberg. The reason I did the show was to be able to do postcards. I've just always wanted to do postcards.
An indelible record of 20 years in American popular culture, turned into picture postcards. Credit the photographer, Annie Leibovitz.
I still think that some of the most important images that have existed are photographs, and that they are images that stay with you. They are the memorable images. They are strong, and you can look at them again and again.
Which is why we choose Annie Leibovitz, who has captured her era for the rest of us. As for getting people to do unusual things, she takes exception. In everything I do, she says, the ideas are derived from real life. And I always manage to get done what I want, she adds. That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. On Monday night, we'll broadcast from London. Have a nice weekend. Good night.
Gymnasts compete for the all-around gold, plus the brightest stars on ice meet in the hottest contest on wheels, all Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sport.
Glimpse a magnificent and powerful spirit, victim of man or nature's most perfectly evolved predator. Cougar, Ghost of the Rockies on World of Discovery, Saturday.
Local news is up next year on Channel 2. Members of the Frank Gable murder trial jury share their thoughts with the media for the first time.
Doctors at St. Vincent Hospital say the new heart wrap